All right, everyone. I'm joined by Adam Weiche today from Leadferno, and I'm super happy to have you here and talking about, we're talking about text, but we're really talking about conversion best practices for legal, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me, Conrad.
Yeah. So Leadferno is one of the hotter products and vendors that I hear about when I'm talking to some of my legal marketing nerds. Can you give a really, really quick overview, kind of the elevator pitch, so we know what we're talking about, just to kind of orient people?
Yeah, as you alluded to, we are focused on conversion. So the most visible piece of our product is we place a couple of floating call to action buttons that are always on your website, any device, any screen, any page of your website. And they are clearly calling out the ways that you can communicate with the business, with one of the center points of that being two-way texting. As we've all evolved, texting is probably our number one, our easiest form of communication to manage and engage, especially as a consumer. And we've seen those benefits carry over into business. So our goal at the end of the day is to help create more conversations coming from your digital properties, especially from your website. And then secondarily, make those conversations easier to manage for your business, your staff, and your team as you engage with those customers.
So we're seeing across before we did this call, I looked at all of our clients and how they are doing those conversions. We're seeing about 1% of conversions coming through text across my spectrum of clients for whom I have data. One of the things I think is really difficult for law firms on texting is actually the responsiveness. Okay, so a text happens and then it often gets lost in the ether, right? Walk me through like how to make sure that doesn't happen, other than like, yeah, make sure you've got your phone with you, right? How do you systemically make sure that's not a problem for a law firm?
Yeah, I think there's a few different elements, right? There's definitely not one, oh, here's the silver bullet for it. One of the ways we attack this is with an auto reply feature. So the minute someone fills out and starts that text conversation and they're a new lead, they get an instant auto reply. We have a couple variations. The two most common is based on the business or the availability hours of the firm. So if it's during your availability hours, it can say, hey, thanks for contacting our firm. We're currently with a client. We will respond shortly. Establish immediate engagement. Give them some type of a time frame. The example I just gave there is like as soon as we're done with someone. We also see some people use generally within 30 minutes, within an hour, within 2 hours, but you're setting an expectation so that prospect feels like they don't have to keep looking for a solution or someone who's going to contact them. They're able to get that reply. And then we're able to do that outside of business hours as well. We'll automatically pull in and say, hey, our offices are closed right now. We did receive your message. We will respond starting at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning if they send it at midnight or 2 a.m. and your availability hours aren't set out that far. And then you can even say, please tell us more, or click this link if you want to start our new case process or our free consultation process. So we find that engagement really helps, especially with after hours leads where people previously, you fill out a contact form. We can obviously talk about things that happen when you click on a live chat button and it tells you agent not available. You're still just filling out a form and now you're regressing back to email that's there. So that auto reply we find to be a really key factor. And then just as you mentioned, it is very handy that it's on their phone. It's in an app version on their phone. We have a desktop version you can use as well, but you're getting that push notification. So you're very aware that new lead has come in. And it's following the same type of formatting as texting, which we all easily know how to do and are fluent in, and our app mimics those same features and user experience.
And so I'm curious on your perspective on best practices. I'm sure you have data on this. The follow-up, right? Okay, so you get the text, I'm going to follow up. Is that best as a text? If there's a delay, is it best as a phone call? What's your perspective on like, okay, now we've got an inbound and I want to treat this person really well. Am I communicating in that medium in which they've reached out, even if it's an hour later or a day later, or am I picking up the phone and talking to them?
What I've seen work best, and especially, and a lot of this comes down to is just considering the consumer's already made a preference, right? You've given them options and they've chosen text. So this means they have a preference for this. So I always say, stay with their preference first. And then if you want to work them into another format, like do that within your communication. Reply within text. And we see all variations of this. I tell people all the time when we bring our tool to them, this doesn't mean you have to do everything in your business and sales process in text. Our number one job is to start a conversation. After that, whatever you need to do with it. So you can answer that first question and then say, great, can we schedule a call? Can I give you a call right now? Can I email this information to you? So you're basically asking their permission to use another channel that might be more favorable to you, easier for you to manage, whatever that might be. But I do almost always say, play off of their cue that this is my preferred channel first, and help them establish there first before you turn around and call or email or try to move them to a different channel.
So you talked a little bit about automation with text, and I think you were really talking about bringing people further down the sales funnel, stop the shop kind of thing, right? And
Yep.
is this, so integrating with a calendar, being able to get further deeper into like their next step. I'm signing up for a consultation. Any best practices, any thoughts on like what is the best way to get people to stop that shop and get them further into your system?
Yeah. And, no surprise, so much of this ends up with the art of conversation, and
Right.
so many different sales tactics are there. The real beauty of text is text, no one wants to write or read 300 character, 500 word text, which we
Right.
will often compose in emails or leave extremely long voicemails. It's right to the point. So I always really stress with people, like, answering questions builds trust. So you have to kind of establish a feel. Have I built enough trust to go for the close, to set the hook, whatever that might be. So it's answering that and then always proposing a next step, right? When you think of communication, I just look at a lot of people, what they fail to do is they'll answer something and then the answer will be the end of their communication. And now when you look at that as a communication cycle, you're really relying on that other end to like refuel, to restart the conversation, where you want to basically ask them a question. Do you have any other questions, or could I schedule a 15-minute call with you? So providing that next step, and really the simplest way I would put it is be proactive with your conversation, lead it, and you will get much better results in working them through a process.
Okay. I want to switch a little bit and talk about analytics. Right. I am a huge fan of analytics, marketing channels, sales velocity, all this type of stuff. How do you handle delivering data into a CRM, for example? What kind of data are you looking at? What are the key pieces of information and data that someone should be looking at when they're thinking about conversion?
Yeah, so there's a few different ways that we look at this, track things, and then also move this along. So at a very surface, this is what you get out of the box level. We have a lead capture report within our system. It's going to give you things like a visual on how many times the buttons have impression, right? This is basically just page views. How many times they clicked on it, right? Because you click these call to action buttons, then it opens what we call our lead box. And this is what's giving you the option to either text with them, call them, request a call, email them, fill out an estimate form. So now we're letting you know the engagement with that. And then the third level is we're saying, here's the action they took within that lead box. They did click to call. They did click to text you, whatever that might be. So that's one element we do. Then because we integrate with Google Business Messages, which features a chat icon in your Google Business profile, we report on leads coming in through there. And then we integrate with Facebook Messenger and integrate and show leads coming in through there. In addition, then if you're using our lead box and offering, as we call these different channels of click to call, request to call, text, contact form, we're going to report on how those are clicked on as well. And then like the request to call and texting, since we control that entire flow, we'll report on that all the way to conversion, that a text did come in and you were able to field it. Obviously, things like our click to call, we can track that they click to call, but then the next prompt is on their phone, right? Where your iOS device, your Android device will say, here's the number, and you have to press it to call. That's outside of the realm of what we can track because it's on your device. So we can track that action, but we can't track that one specifically to conversion.
Because,
now, if we go,
you'd need to be working with a dynamic call tracking number to actually do the tracking on that. And I'm assuming that you integrate with a call rail and stuff like that.
Yes, which we can do. If you're using call rail, call tracking metrics, you add that JavaScript into our click to call feature, and you're able to do dynamic number insertion. You're able to do call tracking through our tool as well.
Okay.
Then the second level that we offer in tracking is we integrate with Google Analytics. GA4 as well now. Everything that I was, that was fun.
Yeah, there you go. Close your eyes and run into the middle wall.
Exactly. Yeah, I want to say it was maybe late January where we completed that. We let things marinate a little bit to see where things are at and where things are going. And then as well as consulting with a number of folks that were already running wild in that forest that we know would be of help to us. But yeah, so everything the lead box does basically fires an event. All the things I was just talking about uses events the same way we track it internally in our report is tracked in GA. So you're able to easily set up conversions for leads in Google Analytics and be able to look at leads generated. So in, our conversions of someone requesting a call or starting a text conversation, we can track those. You can set those up as a conversion in GA4 and then be able to parse through those by source, medium, campaign tracking, whatever you're doing with those.
Okay.
So those are the out of the box. To where you kind of started with your question, then yes, we integrate. So the most common form is we have a Zapier app. So you're able to use a new contact or a new conversation, a new thread as a trigger in ours, and then populate it into your CRM of choice as long as they're on Zapier, which pretty much covers 90% of the field that's out there nowadays. There's obviously, you get into some, I can see on your face, you're like, oh, there's plenty in the legal industry that are pretty close.
It's funny. Like, I don't understand how these products exist without being able to integrate. I don't understand how they keep, we try and be very agnostic in terms of which CRM system we work with. So like we have become very good at all of them, which is expensive and a pain in the neck, but there are some that don't work. There's some you can't work with. And it's like, I never try and get someone off a CRM system unless it can't integrate with other systems, because it's an island. It's so
cute. Yeah, totally. And I'm amazed at how many times, and I think it just goes into the way we operate and do business. And plus, right, prior to software, I ran digital agencies for 15 plus years. So I constantly start getting asked once, oh, hey, I really trust you. You're a very straight shooter with us and whatever else. Like, do you have recommendations on this and that? Like everything from web design to their phone systems to you name it. And CRMs is definitely one. And it is one of those things when people ask me and I just say, hey, there's so many choices out there nowadays. But when I give them 3 things to think about, one of those 3 things is like how open flowing to bring data in and data out. If they don't have a Zapier app, it's already kind of a red flag to me. So yeah, we offer that. And then we also have an open API. So someone can take that. You obviously need a developer's help to be able to work with that. But that can be utilized as well. So like I said, the most common we see there is when a new lead started, then it'll automatically populate it into their CRM. They might do a bi-directional. So they're bringing their contacts in so they can use our platform to text out to them for appointment reminders or different reminders of things going on as well. So that's a possibility.
So that's really fascinating. So you're bringing data out of CRM into your system so people can automate the process of staying in touch via text.
Yes. Yep.
Very key, right?
Yes. Yeah. Most of the time, the most basic element is they might one way or another before getting into the beauty when you start using a product like ours is the majority of your leads are going to come in from your customer self-choosing to start a text conversation, right? It could be an existing customer following up on something and now seeing, oh, they offer this. Well, when they self-select, that's them opting in for you to be able to text them. So we're automatically capturing consent for you when they start that communication with texting. We will see a number of firms and businesses that they've done this manually in the past, right? You've filled out paperwork or you've already communicated this way and whatever else, but now you're centralizing it. You're using a piece of software to do this instead of personally off your phone or office staff phones or things else that have all kinds of security and data flaws and whatever else. Yeah, they'll end up bringing it back in. So now, hey, we can start working with them through this process. And then there's just all kinds of features in ours, like saved message templates and things like that. So you can pull up an appointment reminder within just a couple of clicks and be able to quickly send it off after you put the date information in there. So it's making those workflows a lot easier and simpler and allowing their staff to do a lot more with less.
Let me ask a different question. We're talking a lot about the analytics that you can actually produce and how it integrates together. You're advising, let me give you a theoretical. You're advising a law firm about, you and I can generate as much data as you can possibly imagine, right? We can overwhelm, and we do overwhelm clients with data. There's so many KPIs there's so much I can report on.
Yep.
Let me put you in the shoes of you're advising a law firm about two or three KPIs they should be looking at when it comes to the process of intake? What are you going to concentrate them on? What's your dashboard? What's the focus? What should they be looking at? So they're not drowning in all this data and looking at things that aren't really actionable or important.
Yeah. When I look at those, obviously getting them, what are the outcomes, right? Obviously caring about that. So in ours, somebody moves from being a new lead to an open conversation. Then when you go to close it out, you have the choices of won, lost, or other. So I'm looking at what are these conversation wins, right? And each organization defines these different. It might be booking a call. It might be landing the case, getting a first payment, whatever that might be. You define those, and then you're able to look at those metrics and say, what percentage of our leads are we landing this way? And that's what allows you to address, are we targeting the right audience? Do we have the right onboarding process? All those kind of pieces.
Right.
The next one is kind of a project in motion for us, but it's time to reply. So we are just embarking on our kind of, we already talked about the things we have that are more of what I would say a quantitative report and letting you know volumes. Our next report feature that we're building has to do with average time to first reply, individual agents' time to first reply. It's so interesting to me I don't have anything specifically legal focused, but as a whole, digital leads, I think the last time I saw a pretty updated survey, the average response time is like 16 hours, right? And when you look at, I talk about all the time because I live this in my own personal life. In the last 6 months alone, I've filled out 2 or 3 small business contact forms where I never, ever got a reply, right? Like I told them, this is what I need. This is what I'm looking to do. Can you help me with this? No reply. In one of the cases, I hugely laugh. 2 months later, I got put onto their email marketing list. So somewhere they have the automation of pulling that contact email. And I'm like, you don't need to market to me. I already tried to I was already ready to buy from you. So that was really comical. So that time to first reply being very important. It's why we're building something in so people can really hone on it. And then for a firm that has multiple people that might handle this, you'll be able to look at each person's performance, understanding their time to first reply, their average reply times, and also, amount of messaging leads they're handling and close rate and things like that.
I think that's one of the frequently missed perspectives is like on the intake side of things, like we think it's so easy. You're just responding to someone, you're walking through a script, but people perform fundamentally differently. And replying, like time to reply is a huge thing. We call it sales velocity, but you're right. It's super fascinating. That sales velocity. So we know that one of the most, when you talk to consumers about what's important to them in selecting a law firm, it's like accessibility or responsiveness, right? That has come out from Clio. It's come out from the ABA. It's come out over and years. I've been doing this for, 16 years. That has always been a thing.
Yep.
And if you're taking 16 hours to get back to someone, you're indicating, and even if it's just your intake is bad, but it suggests that actually getting a hold of the attorney is even more difficult.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many like layers to this to peel back that I find really interesting. And a lot of businesses, they get it when they can shift themselves to being a consumer, to being a buyer themselves. As the business, they have such a hard time. But if you start asking them about their own processes and things like that, it's amazing how many times I talk to people on demos or sales calls, and their light bulb moment to look into Leadferno was something else, right? Like, oh, we were moving and my wife just kept raving about how easy the moving company was to work with because it was all over text. And so here's this guy that works in construction 100%. Or a plumber or another business. Like, so I figured I should make my business easy to work with, right? Like
100%. I tell people, and I mean this, like, go buy a pair of shoes at Nordstrom and then go mystery shop your own firm and see what the experience of buying a $200 or $300 pair of shoes is. I don't buy fancy shoes at Nordstrom, but is compared to hiring your law firm, right? And generally Nordstrom is going to outperform law firms because that is their focus, is amazing customer service.
Yep.
All right. Completely different question. I imagine one of the things that people think about a lot is text versus chat, right? And chat has been pretty aggressive and ubiquitous in legal for a very long time. I think it's been, in many cases, ham-fistedly rolled out. There are some really good providers, and I was glad to see there was kind of this duopoly that's been broken up with new technologies. How do you think about text versus the superiority of one over the other? What's your take on this?
I'll try to keep myself back from like a 12-hour rant on this and try to surmise it as best I can.
1 hour.
Yeah.
We'll talk for the next hour about text versus chat.
Yeah. So at the highest level, here's the way I surmise it. and I put this out there, obviously, I always declare I have a bias, but this bias was personal experience, researched a number of things. And the easiest way I frame this up, especially for small business to think about this, is live chat is just a session, texting is a connection. And so when you think about what's best for your small business, you can easily make that, do I need to just win in this little moment? Or do I need to capitalize on connecting with this customer now and having a connection for as long as I earn it, maintain it, grow it, keep it healthy? So within that, I can definitely talk about a number of the benefits. So let's start with the user side, because again, here's one where switching and being a consumer, and we can all understand. Live chat, when correctly manned, easy interface to use, and whatever else, can definitely be very productive. I say all the time, it's really great for e-commerce because I'm trying to win a session. I'm trying to accomplish making a purchase and making that happen. Right. But for services, for business processes and things like that, it might fulfill an initial need, but you're not going to be able to use it any longer. We already commented that when live chat isn't available or that conversation ends, you revert back to email, which is what most people are trying to stay out of nowadays. Like, I really think email is approaching how we view voicemails. Like, don't leave one, don't send me one. I'm not going to listen to it. I have too many that are in there, like all of those kinds of things. It's not portable for the consumer. So if I start a live chat and then I need to head off to another meeting, I want to go grab lunch, I need to go pick up my kids at practice, I can't take that live chat with me in that window. I started it on my desktop. I can't just grab my phone and go wherever else. I have to stay in that browser tab. I mean, how many of us have started a live chat? Agent's going to be available in a few minutes. Then I go to another tab. 20 minutes later, I'm like, oh, crap. And I go back to that tab. They came, they left. I have to start the queue process all over again. We also get the live chat button. We click on, we open it. Hey, we're not here. Fill out this form. Some of the stuff, we ran studies around this. And just since I mentioned that one, what we found really interesting in a consumer survey of 2000, 57% said if they hit a live chat and they get an agent not available, they leave the site. To me, that's just ridiculously leaky. For something you're putting on there to improve conversion, you're actually cutting half the people off and getting rid of them. So that's not the right way to be able to handle it. Where with a web to text feature, we see this all the time. I already mentioned we have these auto replies you're instantly establishing with them, and in a communication that they're used to, both being real-time, instant, but also the conversation can progress over minutes and hours, and it's absolutely not a problem. And I'll give you some data on that as well. So they have that. We see people reply to the auto replies all the time, just like a human, like, okay, great. Hear from you then. Sounds good. Talk soon. Whatever that might be, because it's just normal conversational interaction where most of those don't put out. We have the whole other quadrant of chatbots and people, I call it glorified search or glorified navigation, because a lot of these tools are just trying to match you with stuff you already have to have content on your website for. You're actually trying to mitigate helping them connect with a real person, which is really why people wanted live chat anyway. They wanted to connect to a real person. I have a folder on my desktop called Shitty Chat Experiences, and I'm just constantly stuffing it with screenshots, right? And people being in a bot and saying, I want a human, help. I want a human, and like the bot's not going to kick them out. Do we have better things coming with AI? Yes, definitely. That's going to continue to evolve. But at the end of the day, so many people, they still want to talk to a person. That's where they're going to build the most trust. And that's what you need in a lead in order to convert them to their next steps. The data point that I talked about, one thing that we looked at for most small businesses, and we've alluded to this, it's hard to manage all the things. You're doing work, you're talking with clients, you need to try to get to a new prospect fast. We asked people what was acceptable to them in that same 2,000 person survey. And they said with live chat, the number one answer was within minutes, right? So the expectation is within minutes, you are going to reply, be on this live chat and help me. Otherwise I start to get disappointed. And we all know that's not the way you want to start out, thinking someone's reliable, responsive, attentive, any of those things, if you're already disappointing them off the start. With texting, the highest answer was same business day, all the way up to 48 hours. Over 50% said same business day or higher was acceptable for them for a reply. So now you look at, instead of minutes to make a customer happy or make them feel trusted with communication, now you have hours to a half day to a full day block to be able to reply to someone, and they still feel like you're attentive and a good communicator and available to them. And then when we look at inside of most businesses, and I can comment on this firsthand in running agencies and software companies that use live chat, because of its like turn off, turn on, you get it and you might give 1 or 2 seats out to people. You literally like, you feel like people have to have the right makeup. They're not bothered by the pressure of being immediately on and having this live conversation. So you hand out 1 or 2 seats, even though you might have 3, 5, 10 people at your firm. And so what happens when they're on vacation? This is where you get in these limited hours of live chat being available for your staff. Where with texting, it's so easy. You can be real time, but yet it's still not. People are already using these types of interfaces. We see this massive expansion of, oh, we had 2 people manning our live chat. Now we have 12 people using the text because they're not intimidated by it. They don't have to worry if I need to shut it off when I go to lunch. Otherwise the chat will come in and I'm not there for it. Then we get into all the other thing, right? Third-party services. There can definitely be good and bad with them answering and going through a script and having their processes and everything else. We just feel for the majority of small businesses, what you want to do is scale your one-to-one interaction more than anything else with your own team, directly helping people. How can we make that as easy and as fluid, as helpful as possible? And we just see texting such a better solution for that. And then just the very last point in this on, the connection side, now you have a number where you can reach out to them at any point in time to ask them more questions,
Right.
Ask them for a review, ask them for a referral, just check in with them to maintain the relationship. Live chat doesn't allow you to do any of those things. And texting is a personal channel. If an attorney reaches out to you just to say hi and check on you, and you have everything well after the fact of you've served them, that's never going to happen with live chat. And it's just not going to be the same over email as well. It's not going to feel as personable or as welcoming.
Sure. Yeah. Because most of these emails aren't getting opened anyway, if even
Yeah.
delivered, right?
Yeah.
Let me ask you, ask one last question. You mentioned, this is a UI question. You mentioned your persistent floating call to action. I think you called it the conversion box, right?
Lead box. Yep.
Lead box. You have, I imagine you have done a ton of testing on how and where that lead box should show up. I have found, especially some dirty chat vendors really have gone out of their way to cover up the phone number that typically shows up in the top right-hand corner. So they'll cover up the phone number on your mobile device. So the only way you can connect with the law firm is via chat, and all those conversions, which you then pay per chat, right? Like that really is the crap out of it.
Yeah.
But let me go away from the negatives. Your best practices on the floating lead box and where that should live from a UI perspective on the site.
Yeah, we feel people have really adapted to bottom right corner. You can switch ours to the left based on things of what you have, but this is where kind of people look to it. Also, when you consider mobile right hand, lower thumb area, a lot of these things have really proven out. I'm always a big believer in try not to be cute and teach people new ways. Like, how do you just interject into the things that they're already used to and already used to working with it? So that placement is definitely one piece of it. I find that so interesting. Again, this comes back to, yes, we feel texting is one of those best channels for conversion because it's probably lowest barrier to entry to start a conversation and engage. But yeah, if you want to click to call out ours, great. If you want to click to fill out the free intake form, great. If you want to request a phone call, great. We just want to make connection happen between, we call it lurker to lead. Turn them from being someone just lurking on your website to being known who they are and being a lead within your process. That's a number one job. So we're not trying to outcompete anything else, and if anything, we're trying to make it easier. I can definitely say it, and you'd probably agree. Law firms are notoriously aggressive with this. They have no shortage of putting 100 calls to action on their site.
Right. And it drives me crazy. And the funny thing is they're always told call to action. I've got a you say you take screenshots. Some of the screenshots I take are terrible UI where it's I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I've got 3 different places to chat with you. I've got a different thing that you added on that I can text you. I've got 5 different phone numbers to call. One of which is an 800 number. And I don't know you're drowning me in conversions and I'm missing what I'm actually trying to learn because it's, that drives me crazy.
Yeah. Mostly I would say 80% of industries are completely on the other side, right? All they have is a contact page and they don't have enough. And it's okay, you can do so much better.
And so the problem is lawyers hear from marketing people. They're like, you need a call to action. So you get stupid stuff at the end of a landing page. If you need to hire a personal injury lawyer for your recent car crash in Delaware,
Yeah.
Please call the blah, blah, blah. You're like, you think people
Yep.
have read this and they haven't
Yeah.
figured out that they need to call you in order to engage
Yeah.
with your firm?
Yep.
Why
Yeah.
do you do that?
And yeah, and to me, this gives off the, the perception of one super thirsty for the sale, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's always the wrong perception. You made the great point of just confusion. It's no different than when people look at like news sources, right? And it's like, do you like consuming news and information from websites that are 80% ads? Right. No, like it just gets in the way of your experience and what you're trying to do. And the same can be true for having too many calls to action, too much confusion and not. The second thing we want to do is kind of make that easy. I just look at it like we want our tool to kind of be your simple McDonald's menu, right? Like it's available. You see what the options are and you're able to choose to call, to email, request a call, text, fill out a form, whatever those top 4 might be is what you can do with our system. So simplifying it that way where since those buttons are on every page, now let's give them the top options that are there on every page and use your site to deliver meaningful content and messaging to them instead of every last call to action and channel type and everything else that's out there. So and I think that's, yes. And the last thing, which this also kind of blends into is, we really find that one of the best things you can do is just presenting that you're open to questions and that you want to help, right? So I always say, find a way to say, we're here to help, talk to an expert. Questions, questions on a case, questions on your issue, whatever that might be, like be question friendly. When all you're doing is saying we're sales friendly, like we definitely want to sell you something, like that's just the wrong message. And when people are looking for that right fit and they want to feel comfortable and they're trying to build trust really quickly using reviews that they may or may not trust and comparisons and whatever else, like the best thing you can just do is humanize your business online and just say, we're people and we're here to help and we're easy to contact. And here's the choices that you have with it. So too many call to actions screams that as well. Using CTAs that we want to answer questions, get to know us, get familiar, connect with an expert, whatever that might be.
Love it.
Those are the things that really help.
Love it. I love the be question friendly tag. Like it's so real. And put yourselves in the shoes of the consumer.
Yeah.
If I am buying legal services, I have a lot of questions, which is why I'm talking to a lawyer.
Yeah.
That is my orientation.
Yep. Yeah. It all falls under, Conrad. I've really adjusted to or developed, I think one of the biggest things, any type of business in any industry right now. And I wrote a blog post about this a few months ago, once I kind of got my thoughts together on it, but like the golden rule is to be easy to work with. Like options are the same, services are the same, products, right? We've just seen the marginalizing of so many of these things. And then obviously in my past life and, running a software company around reviews for 5+ years, we saw how brand and reputation are such a differentiator for people. But really what I saw into so much of that is like the biggest differentiator in 5-star and 1-star experiences, how easy are you to work with? Yeah. Are you reliable? Do you respond? Do you follow up? Do you have experts? Do you answer questions? All those kind of things. So at the end of the day, I tell people like, that's the number one thing we're trying to help you do is like, be easy to work with. You pull up the website and be like, sweet, I can just text them. This is easy to manage on my time, easy to ask questions, easy to get answers. You make it easy because I know when my appointments are because you're sending me follow-up reminders. You're asking me how things were after everything ended. You're sending me a link to make it easy to write your review. Like all of these things to me just compile to that golden rule of being easy to work with.
I love it. All right, Aaron, thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it and sharing your expertise. And check out Leadferno, everyone. The cool thing is like your product keeps coming up, right? It's like, and there's tons of options out there. There's tons of ways to spend money on conversion. I think you've done it well with the be easy to work with, right?
Appreciate it. That's the goal and we'll keep going on it. All
right. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.